What we find from our innovation policy toolkits as we move into this area of systems innovation is that the focus on developing new technologies and new products and new services is important, but is also then supplemented by an increasing focus on the diffusion, the deployment, and the uptake of these new technologies and products and services. How do we get new green innovations into the community, widely used and deployed? This often means there's a need for complementary technologies. It's not just about, as Mr. Gurria was saying earlier, swapping out the engine in the car. It's thinking about new modes and mechanisms of transportation, which may require additional technological developments. It may require additional infrastructure investments. It requires thinking about not just the technology and the science push types of policies, but thinking about how to stimulate market demand and market pull. It's also then about regulations and making sure that existing regulations don't act as a disincentive to investments in the new technologies and that we want to have more widely deployed. And of course, it means continued engagement between the public and private sectors and looking not only at the kinds of innovations we've seen in industrial processes and in government processes, but it's social innovations as well, bringing in the NGOs and other societal organizations to help move the needle on innovation.
And what I've heard so far also this afternoon is that many people perceive transitions as a kind of a battle between technologies. And that is way too simple. Of course, technologies are important, but transitions are really shifts in power. And if I round off with a future agenda, what we learned from it over the past 20 years, we need many more big case studies in Europe, also outside Europe, but also in Europe, because we need to learn more from these big case studies. We also need more experience with upscaling and, let's say, the implementation process. We also need more attention for transitions within companies and organizations. And we found out that every system transition requires an organizational transition. And then the most difficult part is that requires a personal transition. So many of us need to overcome, let's say, our personal fears, because the stakes are high. Many of the people within the old regime, they have their basic fears. And we need also a better theory on multiple actors, not only on frontrunners, but also on connectors and real game changers, system innovation and transition. Why is it needed anyhow? Well, we now have skipped the why part, we even skipped the what part, we are only focusing on how, but that's the most difficult part.
What is policies for China to achieve innovative and green growth important? First is build and improve a national innovation system. In the past, China mainly pay much attention to increase the share of R&D, but in the follow, we will try to fully coordinate to stimulate the innovation capacity of university, enterprise, research institutes to form a national innovation system. Second is promote the Made in China 2025 strategy. This is a Chinese version of Industrial 4.0.
Why we talk about cognitive? The quantity of data is huge. 90% of the data we produced came created since these 2 years. And 80% of the data is unstructured. That is a key subject. It's about pictures, it's about talks, it's about social networks. And currently, the companies use only 20% of the data they're able to take care or produce. So due to that, and now 4 years ago, we started to develop a solution called Watson, and the initial discussion and project was about jeopardized game for people who can solve that at this time. And we developed all a range of solutions based on cognitive and Watson. And why we do that? Just because the quantity of data is so huge that the system has to be improved and learn during the flow of new data coming. And it's about machine learning, it's about natural language, and it's about what you said before about adaptative. We must be and have to be adaptative, sorry. As conclusion, I would like to say that clearly all these big words, Internet of Things, big data analytics, and so on, bring a lot of opportunity of green solution to optimize, to develop, to make a loop and reduce all the energy consumption. The second point, which is key, and you talk about the law or forbidden to reuse the waste. Clearly, we have to be cross-silo. We have to change the way to think. Up to now, all the organizations are in silo, and I could talk about a specific call, for example, from Europe to help to invest, where we talk of energy, we talk of transport, we talk of silo, when today probably the solution is across disciplinary and silo. Third, we have to take now the advantage of the real-time and predictive information. If you take the transport, for example, more or less all the data, all the sizing we use is made on an average, but nothing is average. It's a real value you can take.
Better understand the dilemmas and the uncertainties of green reorientation, so don't portray them just as the bad guys. Also, maybe try to work with them, because if they see opportunities, they've got the skills, they've got the money, they've got the political context to make things go really fast. The second is to understand firms as a multi-dimensional entity. So don't only focus on patenting, which admittedly I've also just done in my 2 slides. Their innovation strategies are part of a broader corporate strategy, where they also think about their competitors, where they also think about framing, and they also think about a political strategy. And then the last point, which I already illustrated with my first 2 slides, was don't just focus on single technologies if you are interested in system innovation. You really need to look at multiple technologies, but also at the social innovations and the institutional innovations, which are occurring in all these different sectors. I think that's the challenge for today and tomorrow, to properly talk about system innovation.